My name is Kathy. I am turning 68 this year. At the end of last year, my husband, with whom I live, passed away suddenly due to cancer. Unexpectedly, I ended up moving into my eldest son, David's, house. Originally, we, as a couple, lived in the house where David's family now resides. When David got married and had a child, we moved to a modest apartment nearby. Leaving the house to David and his family, David started his own business, and with an unstable income and the inability to secure a loan, my husband devised a plan for the sake of our grandchildren. When we handed over the house, it was beautifully renovated and looked brand new. Later, David was blessed with 3 children, and we, as grandparents, occasionally played with them. We celebrated birthdays together at nearby restaurants and maintained a good relationship. However, when my husband's cancer was discovered too late for treatment, he became worried about leaving me alone. He called David and asked, "If something happens to me, please take care of your mother. Please live with her." I tried to reassure my husband, saying there was no need to worry as I was still fit and could live alone. But he was adamant. Unable to go against his father's dying wish, David agreed to live with me. In truth, I had not entered David's house since we handed it over. I hesitated to visit, thinking that his wife, Megan, might not like it. But when I arrived, I was confronted with a shocking sight. I moved into David's house with as few belongings as possible, not wanting to cause any trouble. The original house was a small 4-bedroom house, with 3 rooms upstairs and 1 downstairs. David emerged from the house, puzzled. Though, was today the moving day? David has always been forgetful, even as an adult. When I opened the front door, there were shoes piled up like a mountain, and a strange smell wafted from inside. I was shocked because the exterior of the house looked normal. David casually said, "I took you in because Dad said so. Honestly, we don't have space." He grumbled and went inside. Regrettably, I followed, only to find the living and dining rooms filled with shopping bags and trash. It looked like the garbage houses you see on TV, and I was taken aback. Reluctantly, I gently removed my coat and followed inside. From the first floor room, I could see items overflowing everywhere, and the living room and dining room I was led to were cluttered with shopping bags and trash, leaving no space to step. It looked just like those hoarder houses I had seen on TV, and I was utterly shocked by the state of it. Then, David's wife, Megan, sluggishly rose from the sofa. "Megan, Kathy, we don't have your bed to set up. Please make some space wherever you can. I'm exhausted from work," she said. And then she lay down again. She runs a hair salon and, according to David, makes a good income. I looked at David, who said, "I'm tired from work too. Please clear some space in the room," before heading upstairs. Reluctantly, as I was moving items from the room to the hallway, Megan, who came into the hallway, exclaimed, "Hey, these things in the hallway are in the way." In a fluster, I quickly apologized, saying I'm sorry. As I adjusted the items to make a walkway, she spat out, "It's fine if you tidy up, but don't throw anything away without asking," and then retreated back into the living room. I managed to organize and clear a space of sleep, feeling utterly exhausted afterward. Suddenly, Megan peeked in and said, "Aren't you going to help with the meal preparation, Kathy?" "I'm not your servant, you know." Taken aback, I quickly replied, "Oh, is it that time already?" I completely lost track and hurried to the kitchen. As expected, the kitchen was a mess with scattered food waste. But Megan was nonchalantly grilling a large amount of meat. When I asked, "Is there something I can help with?" she pointed to the dirty dishes and said, "Please wash these. Actually, I thought you would order dinner or something during times like this." She seemed quite displeased. For a moment, I wondered what had become of common courtesy. However, not wanting to escalate the situation, I first responded to Megan with a smile. I'm so thoughtless. I apologize. Today was a bit hectic, How about we order dinner tomorrow? Hearing this, Megan seemed to cheer up a bit and said with a slight smile, "Yes, let's do that tomorrow." I tried to be understanding about the state of the house. With 3 children and Megan working hard as the head of a beauty salon, it seemed unreasonable to expect things to be perfect. In the end, that day's dinner consisted only of a large amount of grilled meat and potatoes. There were no other vegetables or soup dishes. However, despite living in such a messy room, it was curious that Megan was excessively particular about clothing. After wearing something once or using a towel, she always washed it and constantly reminded the children not to dirty them. So, all the family members always appeared well dressed outside, which is why we never noticed the state of their house. From the next day, I started cleaning. Of course, with things I couldn't discern as trash or not. I neatly arranged them and had Megan check when she returned from work. Since there was so much clutter, I often asked her to review items daily. Eventually, she seemed bothered and often nonchalantly said, "It's fine, just throw it away." While I didn't want to touch other people's belongings, the house's state was unacceptable, especially as it was the precious house where I used to live. I felt saddened seeing it turned into such a mess. After about a month, I finally managed to sort out the trash, and the house began to look decent. The grandchildren were genuinely happy and said it looked like the houses on TV, rolling around on the carpet. With the house clean, their habit of leaving half-eaten snacks around stopped. David and Megan didn't particularly thank me, but since I chose to clean on my own, I didn't mind. However, I hadn't realized. Instead of being thankful for my actions, Megan said, "What was that, sarcasm?" A mother-in-law check. No one in the family has complained, and no one asked for it. She expressed her displeasure about it. I happened to overhear this while waking up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, when David and Megan were having a drink. Don't say that. If my father hadn't told me to do so, I wouldn't have taken in my old mother, who only has her pension. He was completely on Megan's side. I wondered where I had gone wrong raising my son as I silently returned to my room. Alone in the dimly lit, small space, surrounded by my belongings, I felt pathetic. Nevertheless, when I think about my grandchild who grew up in such an unsanitary environment, I reassure myself that what I did was right, and then I went to sleep. After that, whenever I was cleaning, Megan would pretend not to see and would go somewhere else. Furthermore, regarding meals, it was always just meat and potatoes. I couldn't bear it any longer and said to Megan, "Would it be okay if I make some stew next time? I'm getting older, and I want to eat some other vegetables." When I asked her this, she hysterically put down the dishes she was washing with a clank and said, "Do as you please, but please buy the ingredients yourself," and she turned away in a huff. After that, she left the cooking to me and no longer set foot in the kitchen. Perhaps due to their vitamin deficiency, the grandchildren would say yummy, yummy when eating vegetables and fruits. And I felt that their skin started to look more radiant. Humans tend to become attached to those who feed them. They began to dote on me, saying things like, "Grandma, put a fried egg on the steak. That's not fair." "Me too, me too." "All right, all right." They became completely spoiled by me. One night, a grandchild snuck into my bed to sleep with me and continued to do so even when their parents were around. Megan probably didn't like this, especially since I was now handling all the meals. About half a year into such a lifestyle, as summer vacation approached, talk of a family trip came up. David and Megan didn't involve me in the discussions. They happily browsed through travel brochures and searched on the laptop with the children. So, I assumed I would be house-sitting and even thought that it might be a nice break for me. However, my eldest grandchild suddenly came up to me and said, "Grandma's coming with us, right?" David and Megan had conflicted expressions, but with the grandchild insisting so strongly that I join, they relented, and it was decided that I would come along. Megan, with an unmistakably displeased face, said, "It'll be an early morning, so please prepare for breakfast to take with. Also, finish the laundry. It's only natural since we're taking you along." So, I woke up at 4 in the morning to prepare breakfast and get the laundry done. The trip involved traveling by car. Being elderly, I frequently needed to use the restroom. So after getting on the highway, I would often say, "I'm sorry, can we take a short break?" And we would have to stop at rest areas multiple times. My eldest son and his wife were clearly irritated by the crowded rest areas, as they wanted to get to our destination quickly. The grandchild, who said they wanted to go together, urges, "Let's go quickly." When David scolded, "It's your fault," the grandchild started crying. The traffic jam made matters worse, and the atmosphere inside the car was terrible. Megan was grumbling, "I spent so much money, and this is the result." Even though it was tough for me to take 3 days off. When they arrived at the amusement park, I said, "I'll be at the cafe. Everyone, go have fun." And I kept their distance. When the children cheered up and ran toward the playground equipment, Megan came back and deliberately said, "Please pay for yourself, okay?" There was no place in the amusement park suitable for older people. And as the cafe got crowded, I felt uncomfortable and went outside, sitting absent-mindedly on a bench. Although I took measures with a hat, the midsummer sun was intense. Before I knew it, I was in the amusement park's infirmary. I could hear David and Megan being scolded by someone who seemed like a doctor. "What are you thinking, leaving an elderly person alone like that?" It seems I had a mild case of sunstroke. Normally I'd be fine, but I had been preparing breakfast and doing laundry from early morning, followed by a long car ride, which seemed to have affected my health. David and Megan, clearly irritated, took me to their lodging. Upon checking in, they took me to the room and said, "Please don't cause any more trouble. And we shouldn't have brought you. We'll be out playing till evening. It's something if you want." And they went back to the amusement park. I lay down, feeling dizzy. Alone in the quiet lodging, I began to wonder what I was doing. Normally, I was so busy with household chores and taking care of my grandchildren that I didn't have time to think about such things. The travel schedule clearly lacked consideration for me. Even when I fell ill due to the chores imposed on me early in the morning, there was no concern from them. I began to think, if I were to collapse from old age, they'd probably neglect me just like this. Even now, when I'm taking care of the household, I'm treated as a nuisance. I realized I had always hoped my son, whom I birthed enduring so much pain, would treat me better. But that hope was entirely misplaced. I thought I might need to make a decision as I drifted into sleep. Around 6 o'clock, I heard my grandchild's voice. "Grandma, are you okay?" The grandchild looked at me with concern. It seems the grandchild returned early from the amusement park out of concern. David and Megan were whispering in the background. "We have something to discuss with Grandma. Can you go outside for a bit?" There were playground facilities inside the hotel, so the grandchild took the other children out. And all of a sudden she said, "Kathy, please stop being like this. Isn't it too luxurious for an old lady like you to go on a trip? Why don't you go home and clean? You pensioner, cleaning is your specialty, right?" The trip was planned for 2 nights with another day at the amusement park. The last day was supposed to be a visit to a trick art museum and an art gallery, which I thought I could participate in. "You want me to go home now? Should I take the train?" Irritated by my naive questions, David finally revealed his true feelings. "How else are you supposed to go home? We only took you in because of Dad's will. Don't be a freeloader." At that moment, my vague determination became clear. I should sever ties with them. With that resolve, I said, "Understood," got up shakily, gathered my belongings, and went to the front desk to have them call a taxi. The grandchildren noticed and approached me. Thinking this might be our final goodbye, I said, "Grandma's not feeling well." so I'm going to head home early. You all enjoy yourselves." As I gently hugged them, the grandchildren seemed to sense something was off with me, but couldn't quite put it into words. They hesitated before replying, "Okay, we got it, and get well soon," with smiles on their faces. I then gave the taxi driver my home address. Concerned about the fare, he asked, "Are you sure you want to go that far?" I showed my platinum card and said, "It's okay to pay with this card, right?" The driver thanked me and drove me home carefully. When I got home, I immediately began cleaning. I had been living in a condominium before, which I put up for rent. But luckily, there were no runners yet, so I decided to move back. The next day, I packed up my belongings quickly and left David's house early, then called a real estate agent. "I want to sell the house." About a week later, David called frantically, seemingly having an argument with the real estate agent who came to appraise the house. I went to their house and said, "I've decided to cut ties with both of you. That's why I'm selling this house. Getting rid of unnecessary things is the key to cleaning," I said calmly. Both David and Megan looked confused. This was Dad's house, right? If so, I should have inherited it. Exactly. This is David's property, right? What are you doing? Have you lost your mind? They both shouted at me. I sighed and asked David, "Inherited? Do you remember changing the ownership of this house?" "No, but I thought it became mine automatically." "That's not the case. This house is under my name," I said. Both looked at me, puzzled. "What do you mean?" "That's what I mean. Also, I'm stopping the financing to your company." "Just so you know." "Financing? What are you talking about?" I knew he was forgetful, but this was ridiculous, even for my own son. "You don't remember? We've been depositing money into your bank account every month. We had an agreement to use it for business expenses." David's face turned pale. I thought that money was earned by Megan. Megan also looked shocked. "I thought you were earning that money," she confronted David. When they got married, David approached me because he lacked capital for his business. Because of my fondness for my grandson, I decided to finance him. If the money was under an individual's name, it could be considered inheritance. So I set up a personal asset management company and invested in it. I thought I had explained it properly to David, but since it started around the time of his marriage, as time went by, he apparently assumed it was Megan's income. Coincidentally, the company's name resembled Megan's beauty salon's name, probably leading to the misunderstanding. Suddenly, David exclaimed, "Wait, there were investments even after Dad passed away. Doesn't that mean it's Dad's company? That's because I'm the president of that company?" "What?" David looked stunned, like deer in the headlights. Megan also looked in disbelief. "I didn't tell you because I thought it might hurt your father's pride. But the person with the assets was me. My parents were wealthy. Indeed, our marriage was almost elopement against my parents' wishes. While David never met my parents, over time, we reconciled. And when they passed away, I inherited their assets. This inheritance became my personal property, separate from any joint assets with my husband." Wait, wasn't that what Dad had? As I've said many times, your father hardly had any inheritance. It's natural to assume it is the inheritance from his father. So David and Megan's misunderstanding is understandable. However, assuming you could receive inheritance without any formalities is quite naive, even for my own son. Originally, the reason David started his business was that he was often fired from companies he worked at. They just don't understand my value. My son, who was getting all worked up, left us unsure of how to help him. But we thought it wouldn't be wise to let him squander inheritance money. Therefore, we continued to provide him with the capital and loans. David mistakenly believed it was Megan's income and spent it on both his living expenses and business. Apparently, Megan's beauty salon business wasn't going well, and she had little income. However, She seemed to be relying on David's assumed income and lived carelessly. I thought I would inherit this house. I've always listened to what Dad said. Wait, wasn't this house in your name? The renovation was done, so I thought you bought it. Megan was also glaring angrily at David, spit flying as she spoke. Frustrated by their behavior, I told them, from now on, you'll have to fend for yourselves. As I tried to leave, Megan grabbed my shoulder, saying, Kathy, are you okay with whatever happens to your cute grandchildren? I coldly replied, you can't choose your parents. Maybe I raised you wrong, but continuing to pamper you isn't good for the grandkids either. I left them behind. Behind me, David and Megan were fiercely arguing, saying, it's all your fault. And what do you mean? You're to blame too? In the end, the house was sold. David's company went bankrupt due to insufficient operating funds, and the two of them divorced. Both of them gave up their parental rights, so I became the guardian of the grandchildren. We have no idea where David and his wife are now, or what they are doing. But the grandchildren, when properly disciplined, learn various skills. The eldest learned to cook, the middle one learned to clean, and the youngest learned to organize. They realized they had to be responsible for themselves. Now, without any help from me, the three of them cooperate and manage household chores. They'll probably see their parents as negative role models and learn from their mistakes. I'm glad I could impart essential lessons to my grandchildren. They're now helping around the house and studying. They also take care of me, and our days are now peaceful and fulfilling.